I'll keep my intro really short because Plum is a lot more interesting than I am. But yeah, Plum is an interdisciplinary artist, a really thoughtful creator, and such a thoughtful community member too. So I'm so excited that you get to see this exhibition. It's so ambitious and so focused and shows such a wonderful commitment to craft. I hope you go and get to experience it for yourself in the gallery at some point soon. But yeah, Plum's outside evaluator is Ruth Rodriguez, who is a poet, also an interdisciplinary artist. She owns and operates Antidote Books in Brattleboro, which I think has the best espresso around, the best selection of poetry books around, and is also a community hub for local writers and writers who aren't so local also. So I'm so glad that she was able to make it. I feel lucky that I get to overhear their conversation later. And I'll give it away to Plum.
Hello? Hi. I'd like to thank Thomas Bosworth for being my calm and logical sponsor. Thank you, Augusta Rogers, for being my #1 fan and consultant on all things aesthetics. Thank you, Keegan Rafalo, for teaching me how to bind books. Thank you to Ruth Rodriguez, my outside evaluator. Thank you, Ray, for supplying me with so many poetry books. And really, thank you all. I am Plum Sanico, and this is Trash Makes My Heart Beat Faster. When I was in first grade, I had a secret. Every time the teacher gave out a cut and paste worksheet, I would save the paper scraps. I carefully folded the scraps around each other until I had a scrap ball the size of my current fist. I kept this ball hidden in my desk. Somehow, I knew it was dangerous to be caught hoarding trash. One day, my teacher found it and made me throw it away. But this project is about the joy and necessity of creating that scrap ball rather than its destruction. Why was I inclined to save all those pieces of paper? I doubt it was a maybe this will come in handy later situation. I think it just made me really sad to throw them away. I was the kind of child who assigned souls to inanimate objects. This project is about finding out why something like a scrap of paper could matter so much. So up until now, when people ask me what my exhibition is, I've said, I'm making trash poetry with Thomas Bosworth. That sounds like I've spent almost 50 days writing really bad poems in collaboration with Thomas Bosworth. Here's what I've actually been doing. Half of my exhibition consisted of collecting and observing trash, writing about trash, and reading lots of poetry. The other half was me typing up poems on Thomas's grandfather's typewriter, which has exponents and a pi sign but no 1. Binding my book and creating a trash nest. Here's what I read. Bluets by Maggie Nelson, The Book of the Dead Man by Marvin Bell, Reflections on a Gift of Watermelon Pickle by Stephen Dunning, Glow Child by Ruby D, The Business of Fancy Dancing by Sherman Alexie, For the Ride by Alice Notley, Your 10 Favorite Words by Reb Livingston, Olio by Tiahimba Jess, Tender Buttons by Gertrude Stein, Spontaneous Particulars by Susan Howe, Dictee by Teresa Hakyung Cha, Engine Empire by Kathy Park Hong, and Autobiography of Red by Ann Carson. These books were my teachers and creative fuel. How could I not be in awe of the world after reading Bluets? How could I not be itching to skew my syntax after reading For the Ride? How could I resist writing a love poem after reading Autobiography of Red? I've actually established a neat little library in my locker. Keeping this little collection of books has made me very happy. This is the book slide. And then this is my locker slide. Okay. Okay. I also got the absolutely fabulous experience of going to the Smith College Archive and looking at artist books. I cannot recommend this highly enough. You book an appointment and you show up and you're all like, hello, I am a researcher and I would like to do research. And then they're all like, ah yes, come do research. And you fill out these wonderful little item request slips and they wheel out the goodies. So thank you, Sarah Wiles, for driving me there and looking at these gorgeous books with me. Seeing these books, my idea of what a book could be really exploded. There was a book whose chapters were just vials of smells. So maybe a book is just an item that people call a book? Well, my book is not nearly so odd, but it did give me this sense of freedom to make the book a little grungy, a little unwieldy, which allows it to embody many pieces of trash that I encountered. So I was also collecting hella trash, of course. Collecting trash felt like an intense indulgence in my childhood whims. I was finally allowed to keep so much useless crap. But beyond these selfish motives, collecting trash was an act of love. And I don't really mean that in a cleaning up sense. What I mean is that trash is a reflection of a community. I'm starting to think if we can learn to be more comfortable with our trash, we can learn to be more comfortable with ourselves. The most uncomfortable of my personal trash that I can think of is the used menstrual product. I wrote about this in Bloody Pad. 588 days of bleeding. This is only one horror. Cellulose, cotton, hot metal adhesive, polypropylene, polyethylene, titanium dioxide, glycerin, blood, sweat, discharge, pubes. I am sleeping in, I am bleeding out. When I am supine, the blood wraps around me, showcasing its viscosity, swings through the wadi, and registers the red, ink at my sacrum where if you had not known this would happen, a pad would not be, but I've put 2 pads because I've been bleeding since 11. First, I asked my friends, give me your trash. This got me a few things like exhibition byproduct and a plethora of receipts. You might notice that Oliver Rathbone Wilcox is featured relatively heavily in my book. I'd like to give a special thank you to him for giving me his broken earbuds, which inspired the first poem I wrote for this exhibition. Oliver's broken earbuds. Blonde boy, linguini kinda link. Runs wires across his body as if he were a flatland interstate, and he says, feel the nub with murphy eyes. This boy loses his wires all the time. They were gross, like smothered in graphite, but a pencil is beauty. Like brindle dog or grave rubbing, because this boy tucked the conglobating helminth in his pencil pocket. He yuckied the soft-bodied wired connection. From his ears he was connected, a cyborg boy picking up on bossa nova and Bjork, yeah. Thank you. I also carried around a trash bag for a bit and collected things I found laying around campus. There was more trash on the ground than I realized, and I was able to reunite 2 mangled AirPods. Then I sent out an email on the school's email forum, Community Comments. This got me some very excellent trash. Derry gave me 2 whole food bags absolutely bulging with knickknacks. Derry told me, the story is that my elderly neighbor has a basement full of this and that, which he makes found art with. My kids love going over there to collect junk and make art of their own. However, we have too much. Which of course made me feel very heard, as I was basically trying to embrace my own little kid desire to play with junk. And they're really onto something here. Little kids don't care if something is a little gross. Is grossness to an extent a social construct? They don't mind something being obsolete. I think we can learn from children that throwing things away is not always necessary, as we are trained to think. So thank you so much, Derry. It made my exhibition. Also, thank you, Marie, for the dilapidated green shelves. Thank you, Melissa, for that lovely little rocking chair. And thank you, Kristen, for the canned fish tin. I feel like I've gotten to know you all better by examining your trash. So, why was poetry an effective medium for this project? I think if people were asked to choose one field that Plum Sanico is interested in, it would be visual arts, like drawing and painting. And yes, I'm intensely interested in visual arts. But painting is more like a fun nightclub I've never been, that I sometimes have the energy for, while poetry is like my bed. It's very comfortable and replenishing. And that's really what I'm trying to extract from the trash, this sense of comfort and familiarity. I also think the trash is doing the visuals, so I do the words. But I also totally recognize that I did ultimately turn this into a visual art piece. I guess that's just the way of me. Every poem in the book has an illustration beside it. I wanted the illustrations to feel a little effortless and also have the whimsy of a picture book. So there are 28 of these little illustrations to go with the 28 final poems. I originally wrote 38, but of course, some of them were bound to be a little trash. My physical book, which you can find tucked away in my trash nest, was bound by me, using the Coptic stitch. In the spirit of my exhibition, the ingredients of the book are things that were already accessible to me, like scrap paper, scrap fabric, and bits of trash for the cover. Now, perhaps your interest was piqued when I mentioned my trash nest. I shall elaborate. My trash nest can be found in the most acute corner of the exhibition gallery, right outside. The trash nest is where all the trash I collected went to. It's essentially a reading nook for my book, but I'm also paying homage to the little hideouts that children tend to make. At my aunt's house, under the porch, are the ruins of my cousin's childhood hideout. There are little chairs and a little table, smothered in rubble and cobwebs, a perfect place to conspire against authority. I was always very attracted to that place and others like it. I wanted to capture the intensely charming quality of these tiny spaces made by tiny people. It's really very fantastical. I'd also like to acknowledge that my trashness is sort of difficult to get into, and while I think that lends to the little kid hideout feeling, I do apologize. So a main challenge that came up for me was a sort of battle. There was a real tension between my need for things to be visually pleasing and making sure I was giving an accurate representation of trash. I started to become disgusted by all the plastic wrappers and bored with the ugly pieces of junk. But those are essential qualities of waste. It's no longer fit to catch our attention. So I suppose my job was to turn ugly and gross things into something people want to look at. And while maybe I did that, I also feel like I cheated a little. I feel like the trash I collected was too pretty, was arguably not trash. And people would tell me, this is not trash. But while I saw where they were coming from, I felt that perhaps they were not exploring a more nuanced definition of trash. The Merriam-Webster dictionary provides us with multiple definitions of trash. 1, something worth little or nothing, such as A, things that are no longer useful or wanted and that have been thrown away. B, inferior or worthless writing or artistic matter. 2, a worthless person. And 3, something in a crumbled or broken condition or mass. So really, trash can be anything that is called trash. Trash is an exploded word. It is nearly meaningless. You could start with saying that trash is everything in a trash can. A trash receptacle is a crazy sort of machine. If you put a Fabergé egg into a trash can, would it become trash? Does something stay trash once it's been in a trash can? There's a very pervasive idea that things and people become tainted. If something from the trash can was restored, is it no longer trash? What exactly needs to happen in restoration to strip something of its trash status? Is not being trash all about being useful, having a purpose? Consider the Pooseum in Williams, Arizona. Maybe you think, surely poop is useless garbage. But what about the fossilized dinosaur poop in the Pooseum? What about poop when it's called manure and used as fertilizer? So much depends upon what we choose to call things. Like, maybe there was a bug inside and you killed it and threw its corpse in the trash. And then you also finished a bag of chips and threw the bag into the trash. And now the bag and the bug's corpse are the same thing. It's just crazy. Words have the power to turn totally different things into the same thing. Now think about the word ephemera. There's a cool trick this word can do. According to Wikipedia, ephemera are items which were not originally designed to be retained or preserved, but have been collected or retained. The word is etymologically derived from the Greek ephemeros, lasting only a day. There's no need to labor over the restoration of trash. You simply call something ephemera and it is revived, it is treasure. So I guess you could say my exhibition was telling pieces of trash that they are ephemera, that they are beautiful and desirable. Just curl up in my trash nest for a moment and you'll see what I mean. And while you are there, be sure to tell them that they are beautiful, because I think that there's a sort of shame to being riddled with bugs and flaws. Now I will read the twisted frame out back. Shame is a twisted frame, out back behind, home or a lover. I thought I was as pretty as a bent hanger. How could I be so fooled? There was a tick on the beautiful black frame. I dropped it broken, feels bad, chagrined I've been putting off saying sorry. But of course, not all trash is forgivable. I'd say the sort of trash that is truly horrible and irredeemable is pollution. No one is trying to collect carbon dioxide. Well, they are, but it's not out of love. And I guess that's the big thing, love. Please take this moment to join me in loving trash. Like I said, trash is a reflection of us. The difference is that trash has no binds. It is a rebellious thing. It is not trying to get anyone's attention. It is allowing itself to be as ugly and terrible as it can be. It's not doing anything for anyone. In fact, it's getting in the way. And lastly, it has no owners. No one wants to have it. It is free. I guess you could say that I'm in love with trash, and in fact, it makes my heart beat faster. So, how did this whole thing go? I guess I told people that I was making trash poetry with Thomas Bosworth because I didn't really know what I was doing. It really started from an abstract place of thinking vaguely about trash and art, two things which in and of themselves are vague. But I somehow cobbled together a solid vision, and even more mystifying, I completed all the tasks I had set for myself. But was it easy? Well, it certainly wasn't a breeze or a piece of cake, but neither was it a pickle or a pain in my neck. I was really doing activities that are within my comfort zone, writing poems, drawing, arranging objects, but to a point that is outside of my comfort zone, having to give this presentation about them, having to ask people for the objects I wanted to arrange, generally being under pressure. But seriously, there were so many great moments during the process. There was one afternoon, my brain was feeling fried and I was mindlessly looking for trash. I meandered over to the sculpture garden outside of Wonder and kind of just sat in the dirt and played with shards of glass. I think this is the moment I truly connected with the agenda of a child, which is perhaps no agenda. Afterwards, I wrote this poem about some trash I found there. Small horse and butterfly. There's a small horse who lost his shoe. I hope he wasn't sent for glue. I found his shoe, it was rusted through. It's on my desk, so you know it's true. In addition to the horse's shoe, I found glass wings, shinier than a tooth, of a glass butterfly who must have flew by your coop, you must have knew. And finally, I'd like to end with Augusta's favorite poem from the book. Two boys hitting a pile of junk. Two boys hitting a pile of junk. It makes me think of guns. The booms hit the far side. The dresser comes undone. My bra is on the grass. I'm sitting on the lawn. Thank you. I will now take any questions. Yes, Eva.
What's your favorite and least favorite piece of trash?
It's so hard to choose. The first thing that came to mind was a broken violin bow that Felix gave to me. And then, oh, that's my favorite one. And then, I hated that one. No, and then, my least favorite one, least favorite. I'm sorry, Jessica, but there was a frame with this cheesy inspirational quote on it, and I did not like that. Yes, Scotty.
So I'm thinking about other trash aesthetics from Oscar the Grouch to John Waters. I wonder if there are any artists that you look to who have a similar trash aesthetic, or who you think of when you think of trash.
Who I think of when I think of trash? I mean, I guess for artists, well, there was a lot of people telling me about artists who worked with trash when they heard about my exhibition. Robin told me about Fort Thunder at RISD, and it was this building just encrusted with trash. But John Waters is a good one. Very gross. I don't know what else. Yes, Mike.
Can you scroll back to any of the slides where you physically arranged something, created some sort of physical composition?
Here's one. I guess this is also one. It's a composition. This is also a composition. Here's maybe really what you wanted to see.
Yeah. So you make the point, right? Anything we look at that you have assembled, you see the value add of the way you have composed it. And I'm guessing that you took several digital photos in this process and discarded maybe some?
Yeah.
What do you think about digital trash? Is that trash?
I have a poem in the poem book. And I think I should be able to just say it right now, it's very short. What does it go? Wait, trash will be deleted forever after 30 days. Where does a file go once it's been deleted? JPEG heaven, of course. Or that's So I gave it some thought. But there is a lot of digital noise out there. Yes, Mother?
Who is that?
Oh, it's a dinosaur's poop. Yeah. It's from the museum in Williams or something. Yes, Maggie? How did you come up with the idea to do this? I had just done a poetry class with Thomas Bosman. And I was just wow, this is just awesome. And so I was kind of poetry class 2. And then I was but about what? And then Augusta was like doing about like ephemera, like all these like pieces of paper, and I was like, that's such a good idea. And then I just started thinking about it more and more, and then I had an idea. That was real. Yes?
Could you talk about your typographic choices and like the breaks of the sentences and the stanzas and everything?
I feel like I didn't actually give that as much thought as I usually do during my poetry writing, but I remember in the, let me go, I have no idea what it is. It's the Oliver's Broken Arrow. Oh, there it is. When it's like, across his body as if he were a flatline interstate. Like I wanted that to be very long because it's like an interstate, and like sometimes I just wanted like the shape of it to embody like what I was talking about. And then also like a lot of it is just like how I want it to be said. So like, you know, like because this boy tucked the congregating helmet, like it's not one fluid, but yeah, that's about it. Yes, sir.
What is a conglobating helmet?
I'm so glad you asked. Okay, so when something is conglobating, it's like what a roly-poly does when it rolls up. And then a helmet is a worm. So if you imagine like a tangled mass of earbuds, it's a conglobating helmet. Yes, Kiara?
Did you initially write the poems on the typewriter, or did you like draft them out on paper first? And also, why the typewriter?
Okay, I wrote them either in my journal or on my computer first, and then I typed them up. I just really was excited by the idea of a typewriter. I had only gone to use one like very briefly during Harvest Festival before, and I thought it was fun doing the clacking on it. Yeah, and I like the look. I just, because like my only other option in my mind was to do like handwrite it, and that I just would have taken a long time, and maybe not necessarily have been better. Yes, Felix.
What do you think about holding? Is there what is always too much stuff?
I did think about that a lot. I thought,
Can you repeat the question?
oh, what do you think about hoarding? Like, is there a point where it's like too much? I mean, I definitely think there's a point where it's too much. I kind of like think about my like grandmother. I wouldn't say she's like a hoarder, but like she does keep so much homework. Have any of you? I know some of you watch Gummo, but there's like this scene in Gummo where like there's this kid eating the spaghetti in a bathtub and it's really gross. But then his mom goes out into the living room and you just catch this glimpse of their house and it's like piles and piles of like clothing and just stuff. And I think it's really disturbing. Like, I'm not pro that. I don't know what my message on hoarding is. Yes, Lita?
What's going to happen to the trash cave?
Well, I guess it will have to be disassembled. With all the things, some of it will definitely end up in the trash. But I also have like sentimental attached value, some of them to me. I want them. But there's also, I could give them to people if I want that. I'm just not sure. I'm kind of scared. It's a lot. Yes, Ashley.
I may be extrapolating a little bit, but I think I heard like where it landed in the dirt with the glass shards, and just spending that time there. Something about what we do with our time, what time is trash time, and what is like valuable time. So I don't know if you came across that in your mind as you did this, if at all. I don't know if you're feeling about that.
I like the idea very much. Trash time. I guess there were definitely parts where, like, yeah, when I was just sitting there, I was like, what am I doing? I was just kind of like spacing out, it was weird. But, like, yeah, I feel like when I think about that, my immediate response is like, we should spend more time having trash time. So, that's what I have to say about that. Oh. Michael.
I was really struck when you were talking about being the kind of kid who assigns soul to inanimate things. Do you still feel like you're saving the trash, or is it like an aesthetic? Like, do you feel like you're, yeah.
I definitely do think I'm saving the trash. Yeah. It needs to be cared for.
Okay, one more question.
Oh.
Whoa, pressure.
Do you have a favorite genre of trash?
Okay. Oh. I don't know. I don't have a favorite, but something that I really enjoyed was there was a lot of like hardware parts, and they were like all crazy looking. I liked those a lot. Okay.